Yeah, I like your comments. I think, my observation, I think the television industry is a dying dinosaur. And I think that you're right. Nielsen is a big con game. It's been a con for many, many years. And until we have interactive TV, which is what hopefully we can talk about, that's really where the key is going to be at. Right now, television is a one-way street. It's broadcast to us. We don't know what's coming, but they don't know what's coming back. And maybe when Apple TV or some of these new TV systems come up, where now it's a two-way system, and you can tell who's watching it, who's not watching a commercial, who's switching the channel. You're going to learn a lot about the whole, economics of really what's going on in the television business, and find out that most people don't watch the 200 channels of shit that we have on our satellite, that we're flicking around constantly. And I think that's really, just a comment of where we're going. But one question I have is, going back to the economics of this production stuff that you're talking about, where the production company loses money on a sitcom, relatively speaking, the phenomena of reality TV, just economics of 13 channels, 13 episodes of a sitcom versus 13 episodes of The Bachelor. What's the numbers?
For a couple of things. One, about the television business dying. I don't know what form it's going to take. I can't say the broadcast stations are always going to be broadcasting from a tower, from a big tower on Mount Sutro, huge television set. But I think there's always going to be a program aggregator. There's always going to be somebody in San Francisco with local programming, with news and weather, how it gets to the viewer, whether they're implants in all of our brains. There's always going to be program aggregators. And I also always think they're going to be professional people, whether it's television studios as exist and networks. I think that the people that create entertainment, there will be programming aggregators, and it's going to be interesting to see what form it takes. On reality television, it's a real interesting thing, because I think the popular culture, the wisdom is that reality television is cheaper. And what we find, though, is that for most reality television, per hour, it's pretty expensive now. That maybe what was cheap 15 years ago isn't cheap anymore. But the trick is that on a show like Gossip Girl, we can rerun it 3 or 4 times, and reality doesn't repeat typically. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, in reality, as I said, everything's produced at a deficit, but in reality, there's not the secondary markets for it, really. So you're not going to find, although I said Seinfeld's on around the world, all around the world tonight, America's next top model probably isn't going to have the same kind of life. So I think that scripted dramas and comedies probably are a better long-term economic value, even though they're more expensive to begin with.
So it's the way you described the whole process, like there's like almost a year lead up between when the content is decided on and when viewers are involved. And do you see that changing, like viewers being brought on board like sooner, especially with the recent Veronica Mars Kickstarter thing, where viewers are very much aware of the whole process from the project just got funded to all the way to when it's in production?
Yeah, I hope that's not an anomaly. I thought that was a great thing. I thought it was a really, really great thing that happened there. And Veronica Mars was on our network, so we were with that for a long time. I really think the great thing about television is that everybody has an opinion about it. That everybody has ideas about shows. Everybody has. It's not like we're talking about the opera or something. So I think it's the most democratic of the media. I think people, and if we're getting to the point now because of the internet that viewers can also contribute to finance it, I think it's fantastic. Just fantastic.
With connected TV, the hypothesis is that the networks will be able to bypass the cable companies and distribute straight to viewers. Do you think that'll be the case, or what form do you think that'll take?
Look, I think I'm all about democracy in entertainment, and I think the internet is the most democratic platforms. And the two groups, as I said, I think there will always be local aggregators. I don't think local broadcasters, no matter how they get the signal out, are going to go away. But I wonder, the two groups I wonder about are theater owners and cable MSOs, like Comcast here in San Francisco. Because for the theater owners, although it's an American institution to go to the theater on a Friday or Saturday night, it's getting harder and harder to get off my couch. When I go to Hulu and Netflix and see movies that are a couple of weeks old, I don't have to kick somebody's Coke over, and I can sit there. I think it's really seductive. the social aspects aside. And for the cable MSOs, you know, because of companies like Amazon, Hulu, and Netflix, I'm just not sure that it's going to be so seductive when you can get high quality, high definition TV if you have an aerial in your attic, so you can get the local stations, and you can aggregate programming off of the internet. That I'm not sure it's going to be so interesting to pay $200 a month to Comcast or anybody else. So I think that's going to change.
You mentioned the signal strength. I'm really curious about this. I grew up in New Jersey, like 25 miles from New York, stuck rabbit ears on top of the TV, got the signal fine. I live a mile from the transmitter here, and I can't get signal. What's going on with that?
You know, there's some issues with digital signals, that sometimes buildings deflect them, that it can be trickier,
Yeah.
even though I think overall it's better, but there are some anomalies. You see.
So can we ask some questions, because the topic is interactive TV.
Yeah.
So I'd like to, yes, Beth.
So how are your networks and the folks that you're working with integrating a transmedia strategy for the scripted IP that's coming out? Are you developing games and social networking and Facebook right in the writer's room?
All those things are going on.
And are you looking at that as an advertising or as an alternate monetization or revenue stream?
Right now, in terms of, we've got a streaming service that goes on. So the way it works now is that when a show is broadcast on Monday night, that the next morning it's streaming on the website, and it's also on Hulu Plus. But it's mostly it's a marketing kind of mechanism. Although we were the first network to monetize broadcast in the internet. So we get paid the same for what's on broadcast and what's on the internet for us on our streaming service. And we figured out a way early on to do that, and it's been successful. So whether it's on broadcast or streamed, it's good for us. And then it goes off. Then it's broadcast by the television stations all around the country, and you know, the model is working. We haven't really gotten into gaming as a money-making thing. We do it as a marketing kind of apparatus, and because our demographic is young, that gets a lot of traction.
So you are bringing the gaming as part of your strategy to your target. No, you said you started with targeting women demographic, young women. But are you broadening it now, or are you still honing the same demographic?
You know, we still theoretically target, create programming like Vampire Diaries, Gossip Girl, Supernatural, shows that will appeal to women 18 to 34. But it turns out to be a very thin slice of the pie for the reasons I said. That the way television is rated, that the sample is so slim that sometimes it's just not robust. And so we do broaden out in a show that we produce, even though the target audience may be young women. We will have aspects in it, we will have elements in it that may appeal to males or to older women, to mother-daughter combinations watching, that kind of thing. So we have broadened out.
They play a lot of farm view, same demographics.
Yeah.
Yes, question.
Yes, piggybacking on the whole internet broadcasting, how would you see moving forward, like international broadcasting? Because one of the hurdles we have, like being, for instance, in France, is that even though we would like to watch, American, TV shows and even watch ads, we cannot. And like the only, alternative people, relate to is piracy, which they would gladly pay in the first place. So how would you see that, like in the future, these things move forward in terms of distribution through, the whole world, pretty much?
Yeah, I think, all of our scripted shows come from Warner or CBS, and which are two huge companies, and they're both really successful in terms of selling shows internationally. So as soon as we pick our shows, we're going to pick our shows. We're going to announce them on May 16th this year. I think the week, like the 20th of May, international buyers are in Burbank buying the shows. So those shows almost immediately are on all over the world. And in fact, Gossip Girl and Vampire Diaries Supernatural are extremely popular on the internet in China, where they're sold. The numbers are just staggering in terms of the amount of viewership. You might have a given night have 4 or 5 million people watching an episode, which by our standards now in America, because everything's so fragmented, is a huge amount of viewership.
Who is responsible for the promotion and the advertising of the shows?
A couple of things happen. At the CW network, we have 210 employees. Of the 210 employees, 60 of them are in marketing. So we've got a huge in-house apparatus that it's every night, 365 days a year, they're cutting promotions, they're cutting ads to run on local television stations, and they're planning. So the marketing department is extremely vibrant, and so it's all in-house. But they go outside, for campaigns when we launch in the fall, because there's just so much to do. They go to specialty agencies like Troika in Los Angeles.
You mentioned a little bit about transmedia, but I was wondering with the topic tonight on of connected television, what is your company doing, knowing that that's coming? What are you doing about it?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to my original thesis that whether it's no matter what the instrumentality is, that the alpha and the omega is the quality of the scripted content, and so at such time that 3D becomes pervasive, or that there's true interactive television, what's going to be important, I think, to me, doesn't get far from the truism: dramas that emotionally connect. I don't care what the audience is doing, if you're picking different endings or this and that, what the interactive element is, that without the predicate of a story and a real compelling kind of drama, or a very funny comedy, or a reality show that is just compelling in some way, like Honey Boo Boo or the Duck Dynasty, I mean, there has to be something that without that, it's just all ephemeral. So kind of like the North Star, I think, comes back to the content and the creative talent. And you could argue about a show. You can argue about a show like Gossip Girl. You can say it's not high art, it's not this or that. But I think episode per episode, it was entertaining. And I do think, I do believe that Americans are we're so spoiled in terms of what we expect from television, that there are all these choices for entertainment, and we know when something is good. We know transcendent television. We saw it. When I saw the pilot for Dawson's Creek, for example, I said that is fantastic. I had the same feeling about Felicity, if you remember that one. It was a beautiful pilot, and that you know when you're seeing something that's extraordinary, and the extraordinary thing has nothing to do with anything. Doesn't have to do with the platform. Doesn't matter if I watch it on mobile. Nothing matters except for the visceral emotional connection to what's being watched for a drama. So that's what I always come back to.
I'm curious, do you have numbers based on who's watching on television, who's watching on, say, Hulu Plus? Like,
Yeah.
do you share them?
Well, I don't have them at the tip of my tongue, but we do have the numbers, and we've got a number. One of the great things about television is that it's just like a math guy's paradise. There are numbers all over the place. As I said, every morning I get the numbers, and then numbers come all day long. Parses on the numbers. Different cuts at the demographics. Every market in the country we see the numbers. We see the lead in, lead out numbers. So we got numbers on everything.
There's no percentage, though. Like, you can get like a broad, like 50-50. It's always different.
I don't know.
Do you see any trends in maybe more people or more of the younger generation now going towards the Hulu and the internet versus TV?
Well, I think anecdotally, you know that people that go to college dormitories aren't bringing TVs in anymore.
Right.
So I think that the way people consume television has shifted to some extent. And as I said, we get paid for CWTV.com like we do for the broadcast. So it's a little bit transparent. We don't see cannibalization necessarily. We did a test a number of years ago where we weren't putting our shows on the internet, and we saw no difference between not having them on and having them on. We couldn't measure it.
Interesting.
So along that line, that's what's interesting, we're talking about interactive media, and is that because the younger generation and the behaviors of them watching it, it's been changing, and because of a lot of the games that looks real. So do you see that the behaviors of the younger generation, and you were talking about this emotional connect to the drama, do you see that they will want to be more immersed into the story to make it interesting? Right? And that's what Gus will probably be talking about. They will want to be part of the storylines, and then as if they are inside the story. And there's a kind of a rising technology